What is answer engine research? AER, or answer engine research, is a new practice built to bridge the old world keyword research, chasing volume, going after yesterday's data, into the new world, generative engine optimization, or as we say, generative engine orientation. Answer engine research is a practice. It's something you do when you start a project. It's something you do that is ongoing. And the core idea here is the main problem right now is Google is shifting from a search engine to a hybrid answer engine. And most of its current training data is training off incomplete summaries from AI-generated content. Therefore, the only conclusion is to find new experiences, new insights, and new data to better serve their customers. I developed this framework built on my decade of experience working with MacKite, and then later through a trusted white label partnership with another agency where I tested these frames across industries with great success. I leaned into my experience as a B2B and B2C sales rep, where you have to orient customers. You guide them out of the messy middle, and you take them from confusion to conviction. And you do this by empowering them with the correct information. Now, one of the cornerstones of this practice, when you look at the hierarchy, is the keyword layer. And that is the traditional finding the words, the phrases. Moving up would be the semantic layer, and that's when you start thinking about relationships, the intent behind searches. And then likewise, we incorporate practices like competitive analysis. And this is where we are trying to identify the gaps and see what is missing from the current conversation. And then lastly, with answer engine research, you have to move back into the analog. We work with a PR specialist, and part of this method comes down to consistent interviews. You have to dig in the dirt, as we like to say. The process starts with scheduling out interviews with the founders, the sales staff, the customers even, and we'll even move over to product designers and developers, anybody and everybody who's involved. And then you take this new information and you cross-reference it with what's currently doing well, you identify the gaps, and then you build out your pillar assets, your topical clusters, and then you bridge that across the entire internet with something we coined mesocluster marketing. And the practice is to help Google cite you not only from your website, but from across all of social media. So this is a practical guide on how to practice answer engine research. You need to start in the analog. So before you open a keyword tool, before you look at a competitor, before you even write a single word, talk to people, interview the business, interview the sales staff, the designers, the customers, record it and transcribe it. Then you look for the delta. Find what exists online and what only exists in real conversation. This is what we call analog sweat, the dirt you dig up before you leave the digital receipt. Now, one of our core philosophies that we've practiced is mapping intent, not volume. And I've seen this time and time again where business owners want to chase the highest volume keywords, but that's not where the money is, and that's certainly not how you wedge in. So every page you build, it should start with an H1 that's tied to a real problem in a real emotional state, not a keyword. And every H2, it has to be a supporting prompt or query, or a real question that somebody would ask in their natural language, not how a professional phrases it. You need to phrase these queries or these prompts how a layman phrases them. Think of a customer who's confused, stressed out, or completely new to the topic. How would they type into a search bar, or how would they speak to an AI assistant? And then this is where you move to the layer of finding the gap. So in every competitive landscape, just search your queries, see what the main H1 is, with the H2s, what they all pull up, see who's winning, and this is where you identify the gaps, what's unresolved, where can you add to the conversation. I like to say if you follow the data, you're a follower by default. You'll end up last. You have to start thinking of creating new data, and this comes back to my experience in sales. You have to give customers better questions, guide them through the process that they would naturally go in their mind. Enterprise sales reps do this all the time. We call this reverse probing. So when you tackle the problem in the emotional state, you can actually give the person and Google and the AI system better questions and better answers to synthesize and then recommend you, as well as rank. Now, one thing that has confused people for the longest time is I like to be recursive, and this often gets confused with cannibalization. So with traditional SEO, they treat covering the same topic as keyword cannibalization, which is a mistake to avoid. But in GEO, we call it recursive perspective, and it's how you demonstrate mastery. It's also how you orient customers and orient machines in what we call the orientation hub. So you attack the same problem from different angles, different customer states, different levels of awareness, and then you give the machine multiple entry points that points you as the expert. And you do this by tackling new frames, new perspectives, because let's face it, most problems can be solved within a certain context. It's our job to think about the situation that the searcher is in, what are they feeling, what is their context, and then giving them that full spectrum of context, so you can lead them to absolute clarity to make the best decision for them. Now, something we talk about a lot is machine trust. And the machine is more likely to trust you when it sees that you are willing to hurt yourself to help the customer. That means guiding them away from a bad fit, a bad sale. This is the core issue with a lot of marketing right now. They are hungry for the lead, they're hungry for the sale, and they will say and do anything to make that close. When you demonstrate you're more concerned with helping the customer with a sale that wears well, AI systems and Google are more likely to trust you. Now, this comes back into an ongoing system. So AER, Answer Engine Research, it's not just a launch deliverable, it's a living practice. So schedule regular interviews, run competitive analysis, and then produce content briefs that are tied back to your site structure. We like to call this information architecture and decision architecture. And then map your site out structurally to solve problems. And then likewise, as you're nesting pillars within nested resources and nested guides, with smart strategy to wedge in, you're guiding the customer and you're guiding the machine. We like to use something called the Onion framework that I worked on with Megan Timmer, who has a BAA in PR. We call it the Onion framework. You observe what's happening, you navigate the real problem beneath the surface, then you have to investigate the gaps in public information, organize your intel into usable structure, and then network it across your site with topical clusters, then use mesoclusters to network it back across LinkedIn, Meta, Reddit, anywhere online. We call this machine share, mind share, and market share. So it's a feedback loop. You can seed ideas back on social media, pulled from your topical clusters, which then gets people to start using your ideas. This feeds the training data. The machine starts to lean more towards you and your ideas. And then the feedback loop, it's very simple. People are talking to the machine and taking from the machine. The machine is training off of all of that data. You spend 5 years doing this. You are now the authority on that subject. And it comes back to building your website like a database and then actually guiding customers through. And then the distribution layer. And the only way to compete in a world of copies is to pull that new information from the analog. So this is a practice that we developed to be built on top of traditional keyword research. And we like to think of the hierarchy as reverse probe. And this is where you're on the page and you're engineering your H1s, engineering your H2s, injecting new ideas into the conversation, new information that you pulled from the answer engine research phase. And this is when you're doing your onion method, when you're scheduling your interviews, when you're pulling new data from everybody involved in the idea, the service, the product, whatever it is. And then likewise, as you move down, you're looking at the prompt research. You can also do your due diligence. Traditionally, people also ask, look at the forums, tie this back into your competitor analysis, and then always start with intent and the keywords as your foundation. So if you have any questions on this, let us know in the comments. Feel free to reach out. We'll continue to develop new frameworks and ideas for GEO. So we'll continue to publish our work and our ideas to help everybody bridge into the new world where you can no longer optimize the machine, you have to orient.